Media Watch host Linton Besser, one of the most sanctimonious presenters that the ABC has, well, he's got some tips for us on how to interview people.
This interview crossed the line into open advocacy for the Netanyahu government. What Sky News delivered was also a dud, which denied audiences their only chance to see Netanyahu tested from an Australian point of view and to think more deeply.
Because to them, the only acceptable interview with Israel's wartime leader is one in which you interrupt him or berate him. And this is the culture at the ABC. Their presenters are incapable of simply talking to guests. And when a guest says something that they don't like, they kill the feed. And because, of course, of all the anti-Israel bias at the national broadcaster, Jewish leaders cop it the worst. On Monday, Sarah Ferguson interviewed Amichai Chikli, Minister of Israel. Now, the chat, if you could call it that, lasted just over 11 minutes. And in that narrow window, Ferguson interrupted him 9 times and levelled several heinous accusations his way, one of which was that he was spreading Hamas propaganda.
If they should support the current government in Israel or support the opposition.
But it's not about, if I might just interrupt you, it's not about supporting the government.
We will not allow them to go into our cafes and restaurants, and maybe it's okay to set down a synagogue on fire. Okay.
Well,
and maybe
I'm just going to stop you there. Let me put another
That's
question
the message
to you.
coming from this government.
I think I need to make it very clear that there is no ban on Zionists coming to Australia. But let's talk about you. You're the minister.
That's the reality.
You're the minister for the diaspora. There were specific conditions given for the refusal of those visas.
You can tell from that clip that Ferguson didn't really care what her guest had to say. She just interrupted to push Albanese talking points. And then she starts accusing the Jewish man of spouting Hamas propaganda.
Al-Qaeda flags and LGBT flags that are thinking that they can collaborate with this kind of people.
Let me just come back to what you're. Let me just come back to, if I may,
Gaza with these kind of people.
If I may,
and
just for a moment. What you're saying there.
That is a grave mistake.
What you're saying there is, and first of all, you're quoting Hamas. In every other instance, you reject Hamas as spouting only propaganda. But in this case, you're deciding to take them at face value.
The message is very clear, and that is the only message that counts.
Now,
in a war,
let me be clear, because it is not.
It is in favor of Hamas.
This is your argument that these are the fruits for Hamas. Let me make it clear.
That's Hamas arguments.
The Australian government.
Hamas argument.
I want to pose a different question to you.
Now, at this point in the interview, we are at interruption number 4. And it keeps going because she did not like his answer about malnutrition.
On October 6th, there was no war. We did not.
But you understand, Amichai Chikli. I'm asking you clearly about what is happening to children in Gaza right now.
This is a war. 50,000 tons of supply went into Gaza,
which is below the level of aid needed to sustain, which is below the level of aid needed to sustain life. I'm sorry.
Do you think we are done? Not even close. She keeps on going until she then suddenly says she's out of time.
To pay the salaries for Hamas militants. That is the vicious circle that is going on in Gaza.
Let me pose this question to you in a different way. Are Hamas and the people of Gaza one and the same thing to you?
When he is going to summer camp or for afternoon activity, this is afternoon activity.
Does that mean that you hold those children responsible?
It takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village.
Well, joining me to discuss this and so much more is Research Fellow at the Institute of Public Affairs, Mia Schlicht, and journalist at the Daily Telegraph, James Willis. James, let's start with you. You're very familiar with interviewing people. Whatever happened to just being able to talk to someone and hear what they say? Why does it have to be so adversarial at the ABC?
Well, there's a couple of points to make here, Jack, and great to be on your show once again. But I've always thought that to feature somewhere on Media Watch was a bit of a badge of honour most of the time, because ultimately they've got 15 minutes or 20 minutes of TV to fill every week, and they're able to sit back and pick apart and, you know, sort of fight some of the other, you know, mainstream media companies that have to be in action 24 hours a day, are responding to breaking news, and are having to get things happening on the fly. So, I mean, look, ultimately, whatever Media Watch want to do on a Monday night is a matter for them. But I think the key issue here is that there is an enormous hypocrisy, for the ABC to be claiming that another media outlet has shown bias on the conflict in the Middle East. Let's remember, the ABC have been called out multiple times over the past few years, particularly since October 7, for their response and their media reporting on certain elements of this conflict. And that includes, which I think to this day is reprehensible, interviewing Hamas spokespeople, putting on and giving a platform in Australia to a spokesperson representing a horrific terrorist organisation. I mean, the idea of doing that after 9/11 with Al-Qaeda or with Islamic State. And look, I'm happy to correct the record, but I find it astonishing that Hamas has been given such a big platform in Australia, particularly by the ABC. So for them to be calling out bias in this conflict is world gold medal hypocrisy in my view.
Yeah, I completely agree. And a lot of it's without qualification as well. And Mia, it's really interesting that the ABC, obviously, it should be scrutinising and they should be, you know, asking tough questions. But when you get to the point where you can't even hear the interview, because there's so many interjections, it just becomes more of a platform for the ABC journalists to push points. And a lot of the points that she was pushing were just simply government talking points, or talking points that were sympathetic towards the Palestinian cause. And a lot of these facts were actually contested. So I'm just confused why you would want to try and get somebody from the Jewish community on if you're not actually interested in hearing what they have to say about it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's pretty clear the ABC is a mouthpiece for those in inner city Melbourne and inner city Sydney. This was appalling journalism, but unfortunately, this is just another day, another example of Sarah Ferguson steamrolling a guest whose viewpoints she doesn't agree with. I mean, the ABC is not the cultural institution it once was. People are switching off. Their ratings are in freefall because the reality is, if you don't live in inner city Melbourne and you don't live in inner city Sydney, that it does not reflect your viewpoints, and Australians are turning off because they don't care about the ABC anymore, and they don't care because the ABC doesn't care about them.
Yeah, and why would you even go on the show? Why would Benjamin Netanyahu go on the show if that's their track record on how they talk to people?